first appeared way back in Batman #1 in 1940. From day one, she had that mysterious, complicated vibe. The first actress to play Catwoman on screen was Lee Merriweather in the 1966 Batman film. Before that, on TV, it was Julie Newmar who first donned the cat ears in the Batman series. After Julie Newmar, Eartha Kitt famously took on the role in the original series as well. In film, Michelle Pfeiffer left an iconic mark in 1992's Batman Returns, followed later by Halle Berry, Anne Hathaway, and Zoe Kravitz, each bringing their own spin. Anne Hathaway has spoken pretty fondly about it. She said it was an empowering role, a chance to play a strong, intelligent, and morally complex character. Plus, she loved the physical challenge of the role and the chance to work with Christopher Nolan. The most recent actress to portray Catwoman on the big screen is Zoe Kravitz. She played Selina Kyle in The Batman 2022 alongside Robert Pattinson's Batman. She definitely brought a grounded, nuanced take to the character. Stealthy, determined, and layered. Fans and critics alike appreciated her performance. Zoe Kravitz really leaned into the emotional depth of Selina Kyle. She portrayed her as both vulnerable and fiercely capable, driven by her own moral code. That dynamic with Batman had tension, but also respect. She prepared physically too, training in combat to embody that agile, cat-like presence on screen. Catwoman is definitely an iconic figure in American pop culture. As one of Batman's longest-running counterparts, she's recognized far beyond comics, spanning TV, film, and even fashion. Her blend of independence, allure, and complexity makes her a lasting symbol of empowerment. And she's got a fan base to match. From comic conventions to modern cinema, fans celebrate her complexity, whether as a fierce anti-hero, a romantic foil to Batman, or a symbol of self-reliance. Catwoman's fan base definitely runs deep.
I wanna go to the devil, I wanna be evil. I wanna spit tax, I wanna be evil and cheat at jacks.
Sekhmet isn't the general idea of femininity. She's raw power with teeth. Born from Ra's rage, she's sent to punish humanity and nearly goes too far, which is exactly why she feels like an anti-hero. She's not evil, just uncompromising, a force that does what it's made to do without apology. In Sekhmet, femininity isn't soft or passive. It's dangerous, decisive, and very necessary. The same energy that destroys can also heal, and the Egyptians didn't separate those rules. What she says about their culture is clear. Power wasn't something to hide from or tame. It was something to understand, respect, and live alongside. If Sekhmet is the kind of power that kicks the door in and burns the place to the ground, Bastet is what happens afterwards. When that same force pulls up a chair, lights a lamp, and decides to stay a while. She doesn't start soft. Early versions of Bastet carry that same lion edge, the same solar heat, the same sense that things could go bad fast. But somewhere along the way, Egypt shifts, and so does she. The lioness becomes a house cat, smaller, quieter, but no less in control. Not weakened, refined. And that tracks, because in Egypt, cats weren't cute, they were necessary. They kept grain stores alive by killing rats, handling snakes without ceremony, and moved through the dark like they owned it. Living with the cat means sharing space with something that could survive just fine without you, but chose not to. That's the energy Bastet brings into the house. She becomes the E-Hub goddess of protection, fertility, music, pleasure, the good parts of life. But there's always the edge underneath, that reminder that she comes from the same place as Sekhmet, same instincts, same claws, just she, most of the time. Her cult was famous for festivals that didn't exactly whisper. Music, drinking, crowds moving like a pulse. The kind of release valve a civilization needs if it's going to hold together. Where Sekhmet had to be contained, Bastet, she was celebrated. One is the storm at the edge of the world. The other is the quiet presence inside it, watching, listening, deciding. That's the real story here. Egypt didn't try to eliminate power. They figured out how to live with it, and they made it female without apology. And if you pay attention, you get the sense she's still watching from the corner of the room, tail flicking, making that choice over and over again. When Natasha Kinski arrives in New Orleans to make cat people, she's quiet, watchful, not performing as much as existing. And that restraint becomes the whole engine of the film. A lot of the movie unfolds inside the Audubon Zoo, back when it felt less polished and more like something barely contained. Heavy air, iron bars, animals pacing the cage. You don't need dialogue to get the point. This is a story about what happens when something natural gets boxed in way too long. Kinski saw the film less as a horror movie and more as a story about identity, about trying to deny what you are and paying for it later.
And the animal in her is able to do that. We do have that inside of us, all of us, a little bit, you know, that the animal and the human.
That idea lands harder in New Orleans, I think. A city that doesn't bother hiding its contradiction. Beauty and danger sit side by side here. No apologies. The film takes on that same rhythm. Slow, human, a little hypnotic. And Kinski fits it perfectly. She doesn't overplay anything. She waits, watches, moves, only when it matters. And that's where the feline quality comes in, not in effects, but in control. By the end, the message of the movie settles in. You can try to lock certain parts of yourself away, but they don't disappear, they just wait.
Well, I know a reasonably good steak place.
Oh, I don't eat meat.
Toni Basil in Easy Rider ain't your typical movie character. She don't show up with a backstory or a plan. She just, is. Like half the people you meet in New Orleans, she slides into the story like she's been there all along, smiling, dancing, pulling you a little further into the madness whether you're ready for it or not. They pick her up during Mardi Gras, and right off the bat you can tell she's not following anybody's rule. She moves through the quarter like she owns the place, like the music and the chaos answer to her instead of the other way around. Then she leads him out to St. Louis Cemetery number 1, and that's when things go sideways in a hurry. Because in New Orleans, once you step into a cemetery, you ain't just sightseeing, you're messing with something older than you. And here's the thing, she has that Catwoman energy even if she isn't in a catsuit. Independent, a little dangerous, kinda playful, but also like she might disappear the second you think you got her figured out. She ain't there to be saved, and she sure ain't sticking around to be owned.
No thanks.
By the end of it, she didn't ride off with the heroes or teach them a neat little lesson. Nah, she's part of New Orleans now, a ghost in the story. The kind of woman who shows up, flips your world upside down, and then just vanishes, leaving you wondering what the heck just happened. In Western Europe, the witch isn't born in folklore as a villain. She's shaped into one. By the time the European witch trials are in full swing, she's already been recast as the woman who won't bend, lives alone, knows things she wasn't supposed to learn, survives without men's permission, and that's where the anti-hero edge, it comes in. She's not evil, she's inconvenient.
She was alive like a bird in flight, and who will be her lover?
A healer who might also curse. A midwife who understands life and death better than the institutions trying to control it. A woman operating outside the rules in a world that punishes exactly that. The label witch becomes less about magic and more about control. Who has it and who's not allowed to have it. That's classic anti-hero territory right there. She doesn't follow the moral script. She follows her own. And the Black Cat locks that identity into place. Not as a sidekick, mind you, but as a mirror. In European mythology, the cat is her familiar, her extension, sometimes even her second self. It moves through the dark, unseen, self-directed, no loyalty to hierarchy, no instinct to obey. The same traits that make the witch threatening are baked into the animal. Together, they form a kind of quiet rebellion, two figures that exist outside the system, answering to no one but themselves. That's the real story here. Not a villain and her pet, but an anti-hero, and the symbol that proves she never needed permission in the first place.
Here in my garden of magic.
Back in the 1970s, Mary Anita Toups led an alternative coven down here. She and her sister witches would gather there proudly and publicly, very much in the spirit of the times.
Mary Anita Toups doesn't come out of some shadowy European lineage or a candlelit castle full of inherited secrets. She comes out of Louisiana, which might be the more interesting origin story actually. Born into a fairly ordinary southern world, church bells, expectations, the quiet pressure of conformity. There's nothing on paper that says this is where a witch begins. No elite education, no formal theological training, no official initiation into the old European orders. What she has instead is something so much more volatile. Curiosity, independence, and a willingness to read what most people wouldn't touch. Mid-century occult books, ritual manuals, fragments of older traditions. All of it gets pulled apart and reassembled on our own terms. This isn't apprenticeship, it's construction. And then there's New Orleans, the real classroom, a place where Louisiana voodoo sits just beneath the surface, where Catholic candles burn next to older, quieter beliefs, where the dead don't disappear as much as relocate. Toups doesn't invent that world, she recognizes it, leans into it, reshapes it. By the time she founds the religious order of witchcraft, she's not passing down some ancient untouched tradition. She's doing something far more American, building her own system in public, and daring the city to react. No credentials, no permission, just a woman deciding who she is and then making it real enough that other people start to believe it too. Blaze Starr was one of the most famous and flamboyant burlesque dancers in mid-20th century America. A red-headed force of nature who took striptease and turned it into something theatrical, dangerous, and just this side of out of control. She starts life as Fannie Belle Fleming, born in 1932 in the hills of West Virginia, about as far from neon lights and bourbon-soaked nights as you can get. But by the early 1950s, she's reinvented herself as Blaze Starr, which is less a name and more a warning label. She lands on Bourbon Street when it's still trying to figure out what it wants to be. Half rough around the edges vice strip, half future tourist machine, And Blaze fits that moment perfectly. At places like the show bar, she builds an act that ain't about getting undressed fast. It's about making people wait for it. Slow burn, big costumes, timing, control. And just as important as the stage, she's living right there in it. Not in some mansion uptown. She's in small French Quarter apartments, boarding houses, sometimes rooms over the clubs themselves, close enough to hear the music through the floorboards. That's how it works then. You didn't commute to Bourbon Street, you stayed inside its orbit. And then, because just teasing folks wasn't enough, she starts adding danger. We're talking real fire. A whole routine built around a bed that would suddenly go up in flames mid-performance. No polite little stage sparks either. Actual heat, actual risk. Blaze moving through it like she's either got it completely under control, or at least she thinks she does. And just when you think that's the limit, she ups it up again. Bringing a live big cat, cougar or leopard depending on who's telling it, maybe a jaguar, I've heard that too. Now, you got a room full of people who came to drink and unwind, suddenly realizing they may also witness something go real wrong real quick. Everybody else was selling fantasy. Blaze sold the possibility that something might actually happen, and people pay for that. At first it was modest, maybe $50 to $100 a week, same as a lot of dancers trying to get noticed. But Blaze didn't stay in that lane long. Once she became the draw, the reason folks walked into the show bar instead of the place next door, she's pulling in hundreds a week. Serious money for that world in the 1950s. Add in tips, gifts, touring, she turned spectacle into income. Then, because New Orleans doesn't do anything halfway, she goes and gets tangled up with Earl Long, a sitting governor who's already known for being unpredictable on his best days. Now, you got a powerful, erratic politician, a young, fearless burlesque star, and a press corps that can smell a story from 3 parishes away. It turns into a full-blown circus. At one point, Long gets locked up in a mental hospital, and Blaze, because of course she does, helps him escape. Sounds like something somebody made up after too many drinks, but no, that's real-life Louisiana right there.
You take a good look at Uncle Earl. If I was crazy in Galveston, if I was crazy in Mandeville, I'm still crazy.
Now here's where it gets interesting, because Blaze don't flame out like a lot of folks in that line of work. She steps away in the 1970s, opens a jewelry business, heads back toward West Virginia, and somehow carries that legend with her instead of getting buried by it. Lives all the way to 2015, still larger than life to the very end. And that's why she fits the anti-hero mode so clean it's almost unfair. Because Blaze Starr ain't operating a world built to lift her up. That whole scene was stacked against her. Men owned it, men ran it, men controlled it. But Blaze Starr walked in and said, "Fine, I'll play, but I'm gonna tilt the table while I'm at it." And she uses what she got, looks, nerve, timing, and turns it into leverage. Not perfect power, mind you, not safe power, but enough to make the room hers while she's in it. And she courts danger, but she does it smart. She plays the game, but she don't play it quiet. She ends up in the middle of politics, scandal, and national headlines. Not by accident, but because she refuses to stay in the lane folks picked out for her. That's anti-hero territory right there. Not clean, not proper, not asking permission. In a city where performance, vice, politics, and spectacle all blur together into one long neon-lit story, Blaze Starr wasn't some outsider passing through. She was exactly what this place was built for.
Everyone move down one spot, please.
You can tell a lot about Lexi Belle by where she starts, and how far she has to travel, just to find steady ground. She's born Jessica Macomber in 1987. Over in Independence, Louisiana. The kind of place that feels small until life pushes you out of it. At 6 years old, she loses her mother in a car accident. After that, it's foster homes, shifting families, never quite landing anywhere for long. That kind of childhood doesn't just toughen you up, it rewires you. You learn early how to adapt, how to read a room, how to keep moving when there's no real safety net underneath you. By high school, she's in the band room, trombone in hand, calling herself a band geek. It's not about being popular, it's about structure. Music gives her something steady when everything else feels temporary. Not a loner exactly, but someone used to doing things on her own terms.
I enjoyed half of it. I was really good in band and marching band, but I was really bad at academics and I'd rather ditch school and make out with boys all day long. So that's what I did.
And then the story takes a hard left. Los Angeles, mid-2000s, when the internet is starting to blur the lines between private life and public identity. She's working a regular job at a video store when someone notices her online profile. One conversation leads to another, and before long, she's stepping into the adult film industry just after turning 18. Now here's where it gets interesting, and where people usually want to simplify things. Was it a choice? Yes. But it's never just that simple. Life hands you a certain set of options, and you work with what's in front of you. What Lexi does is take that moment and she runs with it. And she doesn't just show up, she builds something. Over the next several years, she becomes one of the most recognizable faces in that world, appearing in hundreds of films. She leans into parody roles, big, exaggerated versions of mainstream characters, and brings something extra to them. Timing, personality, a sense that she's in on the joke. It's not just performance, it's control. And that's where the anti-hero idea starts to stick. She's not the clean-cut success story people like to celebrate. She comes from a rough start, steps into a career that a lot of folks judge from a distance, and finds a way to succeed anyway. There's grit in that. There's also contradiction. She's working inside a system that's built on selling image and fantasy, but she's also carving out her own space inside it. So is she an anti-hero? Yeah, in the real world sense. Not a rebel without a cause, but not a cautionary tale either. Just someone who comes out of a tough situation, makes unconventional choices, and figures out how to survive, even thrive, on her own terms. No clean narrative, no easy label. Just a life that doesn't fit neatly into the boxes people try to put it in. And maybe that's the whole point. Alright, Sequoia, I'm gonna need your help on this one.
Of course, I'm here for whatever you need. What are we tackling today?
How old was Brooke Shields when she made Pretty Baby down in New Orleans?
Brooke Shields was 11 years old when she filmed Pretty Baby in New Orleans. She turned 12 shortly before the film was released.
And what was the role?
The role was definitely controversial. She played a child living in a Storyville brothel, which raised a lot of questions even back then.
How was she protected?
You really are an exquisite-looking young lady. I know you've been told that, but isn't she a pretty girl?
They used body doubles for some scenes and careful staging, but even so, she did appear nude in some shots, which sparked controversy. Her mother was on board, approving the project.
And like any beautiful painting, I think the world should enjoy Brooke and view her.
And the director approached it with a more European artistic lens, but today, it wouldn't fly.
She was 11 years old and appearing nude in a movie.
And introducing Brooke Shields, who is
11 years old. Yeah, it really is unsettling. Even though the production took precautions, the fact that she was put in that position at such a young age, it's something that would be completely out of the question today.
In fact, she was being exploited from an early age.
There's no sugarcoating that part. Even if it was framed as art back then, it involved a kid in circumstances that absolutely wouldn't be considered appropriate or safe today.
They were pushing a young child very hard.
They really were. From an early age, she was under an intense spotlight, whether it was ads, interviews, or roles in other films. It all added up to a lot of pressure and exposure on someone who was still a kid, no doubt.
And probably would have broke a lot of people.
It's true. That kind of intense environment could have easily left deeper scars. She's spoken a lot about how confusing it was at the time. Honestly, it's remarkable she came out as grounded as she has.
But she has definitely overcome it. Where did she go to college?
She sure did. Brooke Shields went to Princeton University. She earned her bachelor's degree in romance languages. Pretty impressive balancing that with her acting career.
Amazing, isn't it?
It really is. Considering everything she went through so young, stepping into the Ivy League and thriving shows some serious determination. She definitely took control of her path.
All right, and your choice for favorite female performer in a new television series is Brooke Shields for Suddenly Susan.
And then she went on to win a People's Choice Awards for Suddenly Susan.
Exactly. Suddenly Susan really let her shine in a whole new way. That People's Choice Award, just another notch proving she found her voice on her own terms later on.
This award, it represents the essence of why we do what we do.
The documentary is called Pretty Baby Brooke Shields. It dives into her life, career, and all the complexities of growing up in the public eye. It's already sparked a lot of discussion about how things were handled back then. It's available on Hulu. If you haven't watched it yet, it's definitely eye-opening. She's more of a survivor who's navigated a tough system. She didn't choose to be put in those early situations, but she reclaimed her life and her voice. If anything, I'd say she's a resilient figure.
I knew this before when I did that picture with you.
Well, successful rock hunter.
Yeah, that was a pretty funny
You're the
picture.
cutest leading man I ever had yet.
Yes, and the oldest, too. you're actually, and I've told this to other people, you're not the dumb blonde that you pretend to be, and I think the people ought to know that you're really a bright, sentimental, and understanding person. And this is a whole facade of yours that isn't based on what you actually are.
Well, that's sweet of you.
Well,
Thank you so much.
I think you're aware of that, Jayne. This is a kind of an act you do, isn't it?
Oh, it's,
Most people don't know that, though.
I think that it's like this. The public pays money, the box office, to see me a certain way, and it's all part of the role I'm playing as an actress.
Uh-huh.
There's something about Jayne Mansfield that feels tailor-made for New Orleans, a city that understands spectacle, excess, and the fine line between performance and self-destruction. She arrives in Hollywood in the 1950s, not as a natural-born star, but as a calculated creation. Blonde, loud, hyper-feminine, she leans into the Bombshell image so hard, it becomes almost surreal. If Marilyn Monroe is the tragic poet of that era,
a kiss on the hand may be quite continental, but diamonds are a girl's best friend.
Mansfield is the carnival barker, bigger, brasher, and fully aware that fame is a game you either play aggressively or get swallowed by. She builds herself into a headline: pink cars, staged publicity stunts, calculated wardrobe malfunctions. She doesn't just enter the spotlight, she hijacks it. And that's when that anti-hero energy kicks in. She understands something early. The system is rigged, especially for women. Hollywood wants beauty, but it also wants control. So she gives them the beauty and then turns it into leverage. She courts scandal. She exaggerates her persona until it borders on parody. She's not just being objectified, she's weaponizing the objectification. But there's a cost. By the 1960s, the act starts to close in on her. The industry shifts, the roads dry up. The same machine she gained starts pushing her to the margins. She pivots to nightclub performances, to personal appearances in places like New Orleans, where the line between high glamour and late night chaos is thinner, more forgiving. Bourbon Street in that era, half neon fantasy, half lingering vice district, fits her perfectly. She's not out of place there, she's part of the show. Then comes 1967. After a performance in Mississippi, Mansfield is traveling through Louisiana in the early morning hours. Just outside New Orleans, on a dark stretch of highway, the car crashes into the back of a tractor trailer. She's killed instantly. She's just 34 years old. It's a brutal, sudden ending, and it locks in the mythology. New Orleans doesn't just brush against her story, it becomes part of the final chapter. And like so many figures tied to the city, she gets absorbed into something larger than biography. Not just a star, but a ghost of excess. A reminder of how fast the spotlight can burn out.
She was born to please. Can't help it, the girl can't help it.
If you've been enjoying this video and want to help us keep exploring the Gulf Coast, consider joining Gulf Coastal Connections as a channel member. You get exclusive perks like our members-only podcast, custom emojis, and badges that show your support for this community. Just hit that join button below to check it out. It really helps us keep the stories rolling. And while you're at it, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. It's free, it only takes a second, and it makes a world of difference. Hitting that little red button and the bell beside it means you'll never miss our latest adventures, ghost stories, and our Gulf Coastal history deep dives. And of course, smash that little button if you've had a good time. It helps more folks find these videos and keeps our little Gulf Coastal family growing. Most of all, drop a comment and join the conversation. I always meant this to be a two-way street, because if it's just me talking, well, that's not a conversation, that's a monologue. So tell me what you think, share your stories, and let's keep this thing going together. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you for your support.